Okay, we talked about relations where we said that our relations can actually identify relational variables or relational values. Usually, when we say a relation, we mean the relational value, relation value for a particular table. So we had that account relation, which had these sets of tuples. We also talked about attributes and their domains. So essentially, attributes are those individual column names, which are basically going to define what these are. And each of those, pardon me, each of those attributes would have their own domain. So for example, balance would have been a non-negative integer. Branch name would have been all legitimate branch names that a bank has and things like that. And in SQL or SQL, we would say that branch name is like a string that has less than 30 characters. We also said that a tuple is basically a row or a record of a particular table. And this is just to quickly review them. And basically remember one thing, your attributes always start at one. Okay, what else? Yes, all of our relations are going to be sets of tuples. Essentially, that just means that no two tuples would have the same values. Then we said, we talked about schema. Schema was essentially the definition of a table, which just states the attributes of a particular table. Note that schemas do not contain their domains of a particular attribute. We just have their attribute names. Okay. Yes, so we talked about the account relation, and then we talked about yes. We also talked about a relation variable and a relation value. So a relation variable would be something that is a type of a particular relation schema. So a relation variable would be something of similar to a variable name that has a particular data type, right? A relation value, on the other hand, was the actual table or the actual set of tuples for a particular table, and that is your relation value. So we usually call them relvars and relvals, right? Okay, what else? Right, so we also talked about keys. We said that we have certain types of keys. We have super keys, which are essentially a set of attributes that have unique sets of values. Um, we said that adding any attribute to a super key also creates another super key. However, that also means that there is a minimal set of attributes uh, beyond which we cannot remove any other attributes, and that particular set of attributes would have to be unique across our tuples, right? So we call those keys as candidate keys. And what else? We also had primary keys, which were among the set of candidate keys where a table can have multiple candidate keys. So for example, for our customer table, we had a possibility of choosing either customer social security number as our candidate key and or our customer ID as our candidate key, right? So there can be multiple candidate keys for a table, but we will be choosing a particular key and designating it as a primary key. So that would be our primary. Okay. And usually when we are defining our schema, we would have, again, schema is the list of attributes for our tables, and we would underline the attribute, which is our primary key, or the set of attributes, which are our primary keys, and we will not usually showcase the other candidate keys. Okay, so yeah, primary keys need to be unique, so we cannot have a schema that has a primary key that has duplicates across the tuples. However, our other values can have duplicates, right? Just not the primary keys. What else? Okay. I think we left off last time at this point. Just give me one sec. I'll be right back. Just give me a quick sec. Okay. Any questions so far about this? Thanks. Nope. Okay. We left it off last time at this point, that was choosing candidate keys, right? So when we are choosing certain candidate keys, we need to make sure that those values will not be repeated. So on that note, can we have in our customer table that we had, can we have customer name as our candidate key?
Do you mind very quickly remind me what the difference is between candidate keys and primary keys?
Okay. You get that a table can have multiple possible candidate keys, right? So customer ID could be a candidate key, or customer social security number can be a candidate key, right? So given these candidate keys, we will choose one key that is going to represent the actual key. So we are going to say that there are possible other candidate keys, but I'm going to pick this one, right? So that is what we call a primary key. A primary key is one chosen key from a set of possible candidate keys. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So we have customer ID, customer SSN, and we chose customer ID to be our candidate key. Sorry, primary key. Okay. So at any point in time, you can just assume that a candidate key is just another primary key which we are not using basically. So can customer name be a candidate key?
Yes.
Yes.
Can we see a table?
Yes. I mean, yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, for this table, yes. Can we?
No.
Why not?
Um, the possibility for the repetition of names.
So that is the right answer. We won't use customer names as candidate keys because there is a possibility that names might be repeated. But does anybody know anyone that has, I mean, two people with the same name?
Yes, I do. Me and my father.
Yes, right. Given those situations, we really do not want customer names to be a candidate key, right? There was also this other case where this kid had another, I mean, the same name as some other adult person, and this kid started getting jury duty mails, right? So in their table, they just had customer name as their primary key, and basically that just meant that they were sending out mails for jury duty to that kid as well. So we really, it depends upon the use case, and we really do not want a candidate key that can potentially have duplicate values, right? Okay. Okay. Any questions? Okay, so the last thing, at least for this part that we are going to talk about, is something called foreign keys. So uh, there might be a way, I mean, so there is a way of connecting multiple tables together where our one relation schema can include the attributes of another schema's primary key. Right, so we call those as foreign keys, where basically this particular table has certain set of values or certain attributes, which are also primary keys of some other table. So for our customer relation and our account relation, let's say that now we have a depositor schema, right? So for example, our customer relation had customer ID, customer name, customer SSN number, and our account had account ID, branch name, and balance. So there is one thing that is going to relate those two tables together, that is which customer ID has what account ID. Right, so those two can be different things. So we, in this particular scenario, both of those are primary keys for our tables, and we would like to have like a separate table or a depositor schema that has that relates customer IDs to their account IDs, right? So we call those keys as foreign keys of a table, right? Okay, so there are certain constraints on these values that this depositor schema table can have. Can someone tell me what those constraints can be? Any ideas? What sort of constraints would we have on this new table? We really do not want an account ID to exist without a customer ID. So we really do not want a customer ID to exist without an account ID, right? So we really want for every possible account ID, there should be a corresponding customer ID in that table as well. And we really do not want anything that might have a customer ID without a account ID and vice versa. So we call the depositor relation as the referencing relation because it is what that is referencing something. And the customer and account relations would be called the referenced relations for a particular table, right? So this is what the table would actually look like. So we can have our customer table, we can have our account relation, and then we have a depositor relation that basically relates the customer ID with their account ID, right? So if we want to ask something like what is Joe Smith's account details, we can just say that Joe Smith, oh, okay, Joe Smith has customer ID 23652. So 23652 has account ID A318. So Joe Smith has an account at Los Angeles with a balance of 550. Right? So if I ask you guys, what is the account balance of Dave Johnson, let's say, what would be your answer? Go through the table on your own and tell me what is the account balance of Dave Johnson?
275.
275. The exact thing that you did is basically what your database does for you, right? So it basically checks the customer ID for Dave Johnson and then basically figures out the resultant balance for that particular person. Okay, any questions? Okay, so as I said, tuples in depositor relation specify values for customer ID. Customer relation must contain a tuple corresponding to each customer ID value in the depositor relation as well. These are called foreign key constraints. So constraints that are provided by a foreign table. And in general, these are called referential integrity of your constraints, right? So these have to be compatible across your tables with those constraints. Okay. So this should be really simple, but essentially we are saying that K is a subset of attributes from your table or schema S, where we have your S relation being part of your schema S, and R relation also a part of from the schema R, capital R. So K has to be a subset of S, where for all T values for that we have in S, and we need to have a T value for R, where T of K equals to T of SK is equals to T of RK. That just says that for each value of my table in the account relation, for each value in my customer relation, there needs to be equal values in my new depositor relation as well, right? Okay. And okay, so finally, a couple things to remember that given a particular relation, the attribute that we choose for our primary key can mean different things in terms of our applications, right? So let's say, for example, we have this depositor relation, and which attribute should we choose for this particular relation to have as a primary key? Should we use customer ID? Should we use account ID? Should we use both of them? So if we use customer ID, that means that our customer ID can only appear once. That means that our customer ID is our primary key. It can only appear once. So an account